So we left off with the pale blue dot, a image of the Earth from uh, outside of our solar system, but we're getting into the realm here as we pinpoint our location in the universe, where we can actually see the Earth with an actual photo, with an actual image. I went ahead and looked up the family portrait from the other side of things, from Mercury, the Messenger mission looking out, and that was Venus there next to us. And here on this image, you can see the zoomed in image of the moon just ever so faintly there. And about the same time that was taken, the second of these two images was taken. But I would be remiss if I didn't show you my absolute favorite planet here, Saturn. And so Saturn has been visited by the Pioneers 10 and 11 spacecraft and Voyagers 1 and 2, and then was orbited and had a mission that stayed around it for quite a few years. The Cassini mission, and the Cassini mission started about the time I started teaching, and Saturn is hands down my favorite planet. And this image was taken where Saturn is in between the spacecraft and the sun, so that their rings get backlit, and you can see some of the really faint rings that we don't normally get to see. And just an absolutely gorgeous image of Saturn. It was my favorite for a long while. And then I learned later on, well after the image was taken, that this dot right here, that is the Earth. That is us, right there. And there you can see it zoomed in a little bit on that inset. Then 2012 or so, NASA did a day where they called it the day the Earth smiled. They knew that they were going to be doing another backlit photo like that. It's actually a composite, and I think the last one was composite as well, several photos stitched together fairly seamlessly. But again, they were going to be taking a photo of Saturn the Saturn's rings backlit by the sun, and they knew the Earth would be in the image. We're down here right there. So they encouraged people to go out and wave at Saturn while the Cassini spacecraft took a picture. Of course, it turns out that it was during the daytime for us. We weren't even on the right side of the Earth facing Saturn. It was happening at the wrong time of day, but and it happened to be cloudy that day too. But anyway, there is the Earth from Saturn again, and those two there are just my absolute favorite pictures of my favorite planet there. Anyway, continuing to get closer and closer. This is the first image of the Earth taken from in orbit around another body. This was taken by Lunar Orbiter 1 and is a television still from Lunar Orbiter, a NASA spacecraft that was orbiting the moon, trying to map locations for the upcoming Apollo missions, and was the first time we saw our Earth from that perspective. And then humans got a chance to take a look on the Apollo 8 mission, one of my absolute favorite Apollo missions. Jim Lovell, astronaut from Ohio here, was played by Tom Hanks in the Apollo 13 movie, where he was commander of the Apollo 13 mission, the only man to go to the moon twice and not to get to set foot on it. There are a couple other return visitors, I believe, but he's the only one who never got to walk on the moon despite going there twice. Got to orbit it twice, but it's not the same thing. But anyway, he was part of the Apollo 8 crew, the first manned mission to go around the moon. And they did this on Christmas Eve of 1968. And on one of their orbits around the moon, they happened to see the Earth rising up over the moon. Now, it actually turns out that if you're down on the moon's surface, the Earth stays in a fixed location, unless you're right on the edges of the moon from what we can see, because we always see the same side of the moon. It turns out the moon does wobble a little bit as it goes, or appears to wobble a little bit as it goes around us, because it doesn't go right around our equator. So the edges do see the Earth move in its location, but otherwise, if you're on the surface of the moon, the Earth stays right there. The Earth goes through phases, like the moon goes through phases for us, but it stays in the same spot in the sky. But because they were orbiting around the moon, it looked like the Earth was rising up over the moon's surface, and they managed to get this photo. It is the most requested photo for a reprint from NASA. It is still their most popular photo ever, and is really the first time humanity got a look back at the Earth from the moon in color like this, and really helped us understand our place in space. This here is another one that gets lots of reprint requests. This was from the last of the Apollo missions, I believe, on their return back to the Earth, but Apollo 17. Interestingly, they actually took the image the way their spacecraft was oriented. This was on top, Antarctica there. But this has been affectionately nicknamed the Blue Marble, and it is no surprise with images like this that Earth Day became a thing back in 1970 as we really began to realize just how fragile Earth is. And all the Apollo astronauts talked about, if we could just get the politicians, just get the world leaders, just get these people who want to fight and have conflicts up into space to see Earth from this different perspective, their views would change. One of the big surprises that they said, even for them, was they had looked at maps and they'd looked at globes, but you don't see those political boundaries when you actually look at the Earth. It's something that you and I have grown up with, seeing images like this of actual photos of Earth from space, but it is totally different when that was the first time. And so it's no big surprise that the environmental movement came out there. And you'll notice as well that, yeah, you can see clouds here on the face, but if you look on the edges, you really don't see Earth's atmosphere there. It's so incredibly thin and just makes our planet look so much more fragile in this deep, dark vastness of space. Anyway, in modern times here, NASA has done the Blue Marble 2, which is actually a composite image. This wasn't a single image, and it actually means that at no point in time was this what the cloud cover was like. They chose some photos where they had cloud cover that they thought looked nice, and other times where there wasn't cloud cover, and stitched together their choice of images. They enhanced some of the water here. So it's not a true pure image, but this is what they called the Blue Marble 2.0, and was just a newer version of it. This one here is the 2012 Black Marble. There's been an updated one of this one, but I love this one in part because it's the first time NASA put out a globe view of the Earth at night. But the other thing I love about here is you can't see the lights of New York, because this is when New York actually had a blackout due to this hurricane right here, Hurricane Sandy, which devastated the East Coast back then. But you can see the rest of the United States, and you can see just how different the population density is here versus here out west. And we're actually going to get into some more Earth at night photos here. So this is the 2016 Earth at night. This is the flat map. I believe it's a Mercator projection version of it. But you can just see the lights of the Earth. And I listened to an astronaut, Terry Virts, give a talk a few years ago, and he pointed out that he didn't think that this really was showing population. For example, there are 1 million people living in Africa, but you do not have the same amount of lights. There's 1 million people living in North America, South America, and Australia combined. And you look at the lights there versus the lights here, it's just not the same. And he argued that you weren't seeing population, that certainly you were seeing some effects, but mostly you were seeing wealth. And then he pointed out this image, which I was familiar with already, but this here is North Korea, and this is South Korea, and just how dark this whole area is because of the oppressive government and just how poor they are, because their populations certainly isn't so much tinier that it justifies that kind of lighting. The other thing here too is you have the Nile River Delta and just how amazing that is going to be, and it just because so many people live right there, and it's just so brightly lit, despite this vast dark of the desert in Egypt there. And anyway, continuing to zoom in here, I want to show you some the things. So first off, this is the United States. Again, this is the 2016 map, and you can see Chicago here real bright. You can see New York City real bright. You can see LA real bright here. I actually had one summer when I was back in college where I actually got to go visit those 3 cities, the 3 largest cities in the United States, all in one summer. It was absolutely amazing. Something else you'll notice is there looks to be a very neat grid system here, and that's actually because unlike Europe, where civilization kind of developed organically when the Westerners came to the Americas and started settling, we did a lot more city planning. And so instead of a city growing up organically the way that Rome and London and so on and so forth did, we instead had planning. And so we did a lot of grid systems very early on. And so you can see U.S. routes and interstates and just the plans that went into those. And we're going to zoom in here on where we are. What you can see up here is Lake Erie, and this peanut here is what I always describe it as. That is Cincinnati, Dayton. And so this is a view of all of Ohio. I think that's Toledo. This up here is the suburbs of Detroit. We have the Cleveland metro area here with I believe it's Akron, and the other town has left me there. Over here on this side, and then this here is Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and I believe that one there is Richmond, Indiana. And this one over here is in Pennsylvania. Might be Pittsburgh. I don't know. Pennsylvania's mapped well enough. But this string of pearls here, as I always describe it, and we're going to zoom in just one more level here. This string of pearls here is then I-75. And so this here, you can see I-70 going across from Indianapolis through Richmond, Dayton, Vandalia area where the Dayton Airport is. That would be Springfield, Columbus here. This is Cincinnati going up 75. So if that's Vandalia, we have Tip, Troy, Piqua, where I live, and that's Sydney. If that's Sydney and that's Piqua, then this one here is Covington, and right there is Russia, Versailles, Greenville, and you have it. So this image here, I took the time to label it just so you can see here. You got all the little towns here on 48. You've got the Lake St. Mary's up here, where you have this dark void here where you can't see anything because it's a lake, and so there's not significant amounts of lights on the lake. And so anyway, you can see us, and unfortunately that also means there is light pollution coming from us in all these places that washes out the sky, makes the sky hard to see at night. But I hope that some of these images have given you a new perspective on our actual place in the universe. And as Carl Sagan said, astronomy can be a humbling experience, and some people will look out and say, oh, we are so tiny, we are so insignificant, and we mean so little. And yet I look at it, and yeah, astronomy makes me humble. It makes me realize how big and amazing this universe that we live in is. But at the same time, it also encourages me, because we've learned all of this, and so much of this we've learned recently in human history, the last 200 years. And maybe you could go back to Galileo and say 400 or 500 years, but in that short amount of time, we have discovered so much because we are curious, and we are not satisfied with not knowing. And so we can stand here at this place and look out and understand all of that. And that is what excites me about science, is being able to take these things that we are curious about and understand them and dissect them and learn about them. And I hope that you get some of that excitement, some of that curiosity from me. And even if you don't, I hope that you find something that fascinates you and that you enjoy just as much as I enjoy science and the subject that I teach. Anyway, you would have ignored the rest of the video if I told you way back at the beginning that there is only one slide of notes. So way back, that first slide was all there was. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of my favorite imagery here, and I hope you appreciate a little bit better our place in the universe. There are a couple of videos I'm going to have you watch that go along with this as well, but that is it for the notes. Of course, be sure to let me know if you have any questions.